The White House is drafting an executive order to potentially dismantle the United States Department of Education. Good evening, I'm Janice Repholz. Thanks for joining us on your Friday night. While the details of that executive order aren't clear yet, Madison Porter explains what role the federal agency plays in our local schools tonight.
Janice, for President Donald Trump to eliminate the federal education department, he would first need the backing of Congress, including 60 votes in the Senate instead of a simple majority.
What I want to do is let the states run schools.
Public schools in Illinois are administered and funded on all levels, local, state, and federal. Regional Superintendent Mark Jontry says the federal agency is responsible for a lot of grant funding programs and protections, including gender discrimination, low-income services, and special needs education, which could be affected if the federal education department disappears.
It's not a large amount of money in the big budget scope, but we are subject to the federal laws around students with special needs, and elimination of the department isn't going to make those laws go away.
The state education department is where most schools get their general education money from. For example, 41% of the Peoria Public Schools budget comes from the State Board of Education, 19% is federally funded, and 23% comes from local dollars like property taxes. On Wednesday, ISB approved an increase of $11.4 billion to distribute to Illinois schools.
We really value a lot of local control in Illinois when it comes to K-12 public education. That's not going to change.
The state also has primary control over the curriculum in terms of learning standards. However, Jontry says each state has to get standardized tests like the SAT and ACT approved by the federal government.
That's probably an area that we'll pay attention to. You know, I think everybody's just kind of sitting back and waiting to see what's really going to happen. Is anything going to happen when it comes to the Department of Education?
The Trump administration is not the first to attempt to dismantle the federal education department. However, those previous attempts did not have congressional approval to move forward. Janice?